It is 8:30 of a Tuesday evening, and we are here to discuss the reuniting of Edwin van der Sar and Manchester United Football Club. Let's go. Good evening, one and all. You're very welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Man United Agenda. I do see that Lucky Singh has been in the chat, and don't you worry, Rebel being on the channel will come with a healthy dose of the Glazers at some point during the duration of this program. But gentlemen, on Monday, you're just back in from work, and Colum, you're giving us some double shift work after your glorious jelly occasion yesterday. If you did miss that, please do check out yesterday's video. Not only is the part where he eats the jellies fun, but just watch the squirming throughout the duration as he tries to talk. Colum, as someone that has to undergo an insane spice challenge, well, it'll probably be the week after next because I'll be on holidays next week. Any tips for any mistakes that you made?
Oh yeah, do not touch your eyes. Don't do it.
But Monday, how are we doing, bro?
Not very good. I would like to go in on the Glazers today as well because I'm fed up with this hierarchy and the poor man's always getting trodden on, and I feel like that today because something happened to me today, which is to do with that sort of system thing. And I feel poor and I feel helpless. And I want the people to unite like we did when we went to Liverpool that day and protest. And I want the people to stand up for all things that are right. So I'm here for truth and justice. And I want to have some justice against these bigwigs in high business and government and all this kind of thing. Let's take them down, guys. I'm with you, Rebel.
Affably. Now, speaking of bigwigs, I do want to go back onto a story that is not entirely Manchester United related, but does in fact affect Manchester United fans. As you know, us fans have to pay an absolute arm and a leg for your Skies, your BTs, and all these other services that provide Premier League football. Today, the Premier League procrastinated across all their social medias about 3 individuals who have been sent to jail for 30 years for providing streaming services. Now, there's a lot of people that are kind of going, this is not going to gain sympathy with the public. This is not going to resonate with the public. And they're saying that if they hadn't had so many partitions and had one affordable service, that what we're looking at here in terms of streaming would not necessarily be an issue. Do you feel some sympathy for those that were trying to provide football games to people at a more reasonable rate? Or do you think justice has been served?
Look, Colin, you want some of this? You go first. It might calm me down a bit because it's not the right sort of question I should be answering right now. Colin, you go first, man.
Look, yeah, I mean,
just before you do, what's the information? You didn't give too much detail about the. I haven't heard this news.
Basically, the Premier League and their associated partners announced today that in court that there was a finding against 3 persons who provide streaming services in relation to football games that have been conducted live and have exclusive rights to certain broadcasting partners, that they would be going to jail for a period of 30 years.
Yeah. It's a joke. Honestly, it's a joke. Football was made by the people for the people. And not everybody can go to games. I can't get a season ticket to Manchester United. There's a waiting list. I think it's 7-8 year waiting list for a season ticket, and not all games are televised. You can't get all the games. So if there's somebody out there that wants to help and put out those games so fans of that club can watch their team play, then what is actually wrong with it? You know what I mean? It's just corporate greed, and that is all that is.
Yeah, I second that, Colin. Let's get together and join forces on that one, Mo. It is corporate greed. The thing is, this is where people are so stupid. We allow it because we consent to this kind of BS from day one. We consent to it. We just get on with our miserable lives, get on with our jobs, and consent to all this stuff. They tell us exactly what they're doing to us. They're effing us and not even kissing us. They tell us this. They tell us exactly what's coming next. They tell us what they're going to do over and over again. And we just consent to it because they tell us what we're going to do and we don't stand up to it. We just get on with our lives and forget about it. And now, when it comes to, I saw something about in the Parliament today, Boris, they were asking for notes about COVID or his text messages. Really, they can't find them. But when it comes to this man who's messing about with Sky Sports and streaming services or that kind of thing, oh no, 30 years, throw the book at him, you know? So I don't like that, the double standards there. If it's all right to do it to the poor man, make us suffer, then we need to make them accountable for their crimes as well, which never happens. But that's what I'm saying. Stop consenting to this thing, guys. Let's get together and fight against this. I'll get a petition or something going, and then we stand outside and say something about these guys who obviously, sorted people out by giving them free football or cheaper football, because it is too much. Like you said, there's too many services. Do you remember when Champions League used to be on ITV?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We could get to watch Champions League. Then it was sent to Sky, I think, and then it was sent to BT. Oh no, we have to get BT Sports now, and then BT will break it up and do a pay-per-view game or something. It's just it's ridiculous. Now we have. If you really want to watch all the football, I wonder how much it would cost. I haven't done the maths, but I'm sure you have to be a rich man to watch sports these days. So yeah, wake up, people, man! It's time to get together and unite and thing. But this ain't the show for that. I'm going to return to Twitter or something and start kicking up some shit.
Now, I do want to say hello because I didn't see Mr. B. He wants to get into a white-collar boxing match with Richard Branson at this point, I think, because he has been prevented from joining us here on this glorious Tuesday.
There you go.
But on Monday, before we kick into the meat of the sandwich, do you want to say hello to a few people?
Yeah, most certainly. You said hello to Lucky Singh. He was here from well before the show. He said, "Sell Man United now." He's repeated that as well. DM Vlogs, how you doing, man? Been a while. Yeah, it certainly has. Hope you're doing well. Tune in. Big up to Eddie Football Waffle. Go and subscribe to Eddie Football Waffle show. If you're subscribed to us, you should be subscribed to him as well. Big up, Mr. B. As he said, let's get that match going with Richard Branson. That'd be great viewing. That would be justice. That would sweet me. Mr. B would mash him up. Half time saying here, what we eating tonight, boys? As we know what happened yesterday. Hit those lights, guys. That's from Mr. B. Let's make Rebel eat some worms or something. Yes, like a bird in the morning.
Actually, speaking of making people eat stuff, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am pleased to announce that the person on this channel who finished bottom of the presenter's fantasy football table and needs to endure a forfeit is the one, the only Mr. OMONDI Juma. So, do we want to keep the theme of eating something spicy? So, let us know in the comments. Do you want Mr. OMONDI to eat something spicy on the channel? Maybe the one chip challenge, maybe some spicy jellies, maybe a pepper raw. Let us know what you think, and we will see what we can do to arrange that for you.
After I've just been talking about consent, all right, I would have to consent to do something like this. And I'm Jamaican, so I do eat hot foods. I can handle any. I eat bonnet peppers for lunch. You know, that's how bad I am. So bring it on, guys. You think you can test me and embarrass me? Bring it on. Let's see if I consent to do it, first of all. Rebel saying, Rebel, so looking forward to that forfeit. We are, because you're next, Rebel. Is Rebel doing the forfeit? He is, when he gets off his soapbox. That's from our bath time. MUFC Brummy Reds, how you doing, man? Big up. He said Rebel needs some other sweeties that Colin had last night, the jelly beans or the jelly babies. Emma here saying 30 years is a bit of overkill. It's a lot, isn't it? But I say Rebel can't phrase that. It was Rebel. You can't phrase it as them giving football at a more reasonable price. They're out there to make money, same as the league. Stop sticking up for the rich man. bath time. On Mondays, discovering how a free market works in real time. Don't start bath time. Do not start with me tonight, please. It's the wrong day. UK Exchange is saying here, football has been stolen by companies and football clubs. He's also saying Dion Vlogs is saying, how much do you think the transfer window is going to suffer due to club not being sold in the summer? Big up to, obviously, Solo. Nice to see you, Solo. Enough respect to you. Eddie Football for saying it's a stealing. It is stealing, and I've been guilty of watching some streams for 30 years. But 30 years of jail time is mad. Maybe community service is right. Oh, my God. You're agreeing to that. It's not stealing. OMONDI, it's enough. Make him do some press-ups. Yeah, I could go with that. Ed Mayhem in the house as well. He's saying big up everybody. And finally, Brummy Reg is saying whereabouts he has to rub deep heat on his face while eating very high spicy food. Okay, I'll take it. I'll do it.
Right, let's get into the business at hand. We have some loans that we look like they've made a decision on to talk about. We have Edwin van der Sar's breaking news, which is the main story, and obviously takeover related effery, to quote Mr. B. But I'm going to start with the quick one, and that is that we appear to have made a decision on the futures of Weghorst and Sabitzer, and that has been that it's a so long, see you. Obviously, Sabitzer has had some decent highlights for us, but hasn't really stayed on the pitch long enough to prove his fitness. We do have issues with players of that ilk, Anthony Martial, for example. But do you think that they done the job that they were brought for?
No. Well, one of them kind of did. The other one was just a lamppost in some grass, you know.
Oh, God.
It's true. Weghorst, honestly, I might as well played up front for Man United instead of getting Weghorst in. And I'm a goalkeeper. I probably would have actually scored a few more goals than what he did. It's ridiculous. Like, I didn't understand it when he came in. Let's not forget this was a Burnley player. And Man United are loaning in a Burnley player. We should be going for players from Bayern Munich and Real Madrid and Barcelona. You know, all these teams, not Burnley. I mean, what has Burnley done? What have they done?
Get promoted to Premier League?
Oh, wow. Up. But no, I didn't like Weghorst. Like I said, a walking lamppost. I'm a little bit gutted for Sabitzer, if I'm going to be honest, because I feel like if he could stay fit and get a bit more game time under his belt and sit within the Premier League a little bit more, he would have actually been a very good squad player for United. But obviously, Ten Hag has the final call and he says, I don't think you're going to fit. So
let me just add this. Ten Hag said in an interview with the Times, he said today, or recently, he said, this is a recent quote, he said most teams, he's picking up himself and the club, what we've achieved this season, most teams had investment in January to help them achieve their goals, you know. We saw that with Arsenal. They invested heavily in January, didn't they? And they achieved their goal of the title. Oh, they didn't win the title, did they? They bottled it. But for Man United, we only got 2 loan deals, you know. So I think that's scraping the barrel. And I think when you look at these guys, and the reason why we're not keeping them, because they weren't able to sort of impress enough. And I'm sure there's no one crying in the streets right now that Weghorst is not staying at Manchester United. I thought he'd do a good job, and I think he did do a good job. He ran his heart out and tried his best, but his best isn't good enough for where we want to go, which is top, not better than top 4, but going for titles. The same with Sabitzer. I had a long time to review him. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a player that we should be sort of drooling over after what we've seen. He's injured now. He's gone back to Bayern Munich. They will have to deal with him. There's no point taking someone on when I just think we can look for elsewhere, or maybe look into our youth ranks for a player who can come in. He's a stopper. You know, he's blocking these guys' the path to the first team. So I think they've done well. Thank you for helping contribute towards the League Cup winners, a League Cup and a top 4 performance. And hopefully Weghorst can maybe even do some damage this Saturday against Man City and leave on a high, because he's got opportunity, because he's still fit and he's still out there wanting to claim a place. So well done, guys. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for achieving it. A top 4 wasn't expected. We appreciate you, but I don't think you're good enough, both of you. And it's goodbye from me.
Now, speaking of strikers and central midfielders, our colleagues in Stretford Paddock have been picking up on some of the news stories, and there's two that I want to mention, and that is a combined £185 million worth of English players. Now, we have been burnt before on English players here at Manchester United Football Club, and Rio Ferdinand is adamant that Manchester United should fork out £100 million for Mr. Harry Kane, and apparently Chelsea want 85. No, do not adjust your ears. £85 million for Mason Mount. That is a sizable chunk of the so-called reported £250 million budget that we would have to work with before player sales. Plus, have we not learned any lessons here?
Interesting. So Rio's come out and said that we could make some money by selling players as well. He's talking about Scott McTominay, he's talking about Harry Maguire, and he's talking about Elanga maybe as well. And if we can make 100 million, that's not too bad, is it? And that money could go into a project like that, getting the English player-based players. What's the advantage of getting English player-based players? Obviously, you get a tax with that, but there must be an advantage to it. I think they know the league. They want to do well. It's easy to settle in. No issues, apart from the north and south divide. Don't know how bad that will be. You can adjust. So I do think, these players like Rice. For me, Rice is probably the best midfielder, one of the best midfielders in Europe. And I know people will gasp at that, but I do think he's that great. I never used to rate him that highly, but I used to think he was a centre-back who was just fortunate enough to play in midfield, a bit like Dyer or one of these guys. But he's really impressed me over the years. And when you look a lot closer at his game and what he does produce, I think he's fantastic. You look at England's success in recent years, he's been in that midfield hub and doing the business. And that's a top position to play if you're going to be successful. And, all great teams have great midfielders. And the England team over the last few years doing really successful. Rice has been a main part of that. So credit to him. He's shown that he's a great player. And I think when you step up from a level of West Ham, they're in the final, by the way, of the Conference League. Congratulations to them. And they've been struggling with relegation, all that kind of thing. With not the best team. Be fair. They were overachieving the last couple of years when they were high up the league. But Rice, you put him in a team like Man United or Man City or Arsenal, one of these teams, then you really see the value of him. And hopefully he will come to Man United, because exactly what we need. And that would be a great signing. Harry Kane, I've said it in the past. I didn't rate him. I didn't think he's world class because I just think he's a golden boy, gifted with game after game after game. He's going to score goals. But 30 goals, I was told yesterday, he scored 30 goals this season in the Premier League, 25 if you take away the pens. And that's fantastic. You have to give the guy credit. He's consistently scored at a level. The only thing for me, he's not clutch. That's why what reduces him from world class to that sort of level just below that. He needs to be clutch. I think, remember in the World Cup, he's scoring against Panama all these time, tap-ins, penalties. But when it came to the big games like Belgium and Croatia, he had good chances, didn't score. That was the opportunity to be great. I remember with Gary Lineker in 1990 against Germany, we were 1-0 down with a free kick. Paul Parker over Shilton's head. We're struggling. And who comes up and steps up? Gary Lineker. Bam. Great goal, individual goal. Paul Parker's crossed it to him. Got it at his feet, got Cola around him, another great defender, and took it in his left foot and scored. That, to me, is clutch. That makes Gary Lineker a much better player for me than Harry Kane, because you've got to do it at the highest level. And so I do believe Harry Kane is just below world class, but he will definitely improve our squad if we do sign him. As for Mason Mount, I like him as a player. Don't like the price tag of 85 million. Maybe we can negotiate that down. But I think the three of them together, Mount and Rice are good mates. That's what helps us as well. So you think, all right, if they could be good mates and they're going to settle and it'd be good for the club and the rapport and the English quota and all these kind of things, that will help us. And Harry Kane with the goals, I think we should be looking into that. We should be sniffing around like a little hedgehog, when we smell these deals. It's a good deal. Let's inquire a bit more and see if we can get that done.
Now, Colm, I'm going to come at this from a different perspective with you because I know you're on bump heads with the man to my right or left in this case, depending on what way you're looking at the screen. 100 million for a guy that's 30, that's turning into the last year of his contract. That surely would be a case of Daniel Levy seeing the money truck coming and fleecing.
Well, let's put it this way. If United pay £100 million for a 30-year-old striker, regardless of how good he is and how much he scores in the Premier League, then I need to, and you and every single United fan needs to personally go down to Old Trafford and slap whoever is in charge of that deal and say, why are you paying £100 million for a 30-year-old? That's what needs to happen.
What would you say is an appropriate amount for Harry Kane at this stage then?
With a year left on his contract.
This is what I mean. A year left in his contract. 65, 70 million. I'll be happy. 65, 70 million. 100 million, not a chance. You could get what? Osimhen for an extra 50 million. And how old is he compared to Harry Kane? No, I'm not trying to save the Glazers any money. I wish. Well, I'm not going to go into that because I'll probably get the channel demonetized of what I want to do with the money. I'm gonna be honest with you. But I just don't think we should be paying 100 million for a 30-year-old striker when there's better options out there. Cheaper. Well, maybe cheaper, but younger options, hungrier talent that we're going to have for more than a year, 2 years, 3 years. We're going to have them for 5, 6, 7 years if they want to stay. This is what I think United should be looking at. Okay,
Colin, I don't want to go bump heads with you, but where are these talents and how are they proven what Harry Kane's proven over the last 5-10 years in the Premier League? I'm just curious, where are these talents?
I can't stand this proven in the Premier League nonsense. I really can't, because it means nothing. It really doesn't. No, look at
name a player. Let's talk about name a player who's on your list. And you feel that we're younger and better option than Kane. Let's talk about it.
Obviously, the most obvious one is Victor Osimhen. He's the most obvious.
Why do you think Osimhen would be better suited? And what makes you think he'd be able to perform in the Premier League?
He's younger, for one. He's a lot quicker. He's got a little bit more to his game than what Harry Kane does. Because with the way Erik ten Hag's setting up, we want our striker to be running. We don't want him to be dropping deep and picking up the ball. We want somebody that's going to go through. That's why Marcus Rashford played through the middle the other day, because he wants somebody to make those runs. And Harry Kane hasn't got the pace to do that.
Would you say that Osimhen has the potential to be our Didier Drogba?
I would say so, possibly. But again, there's loads of names you can mention, but it all depends on how to adapt to a Ten Hag system and how Ten Hag molds them. Harry Kane is 30 years old. You can't really mold a 30-year-old. They're set in the way. They do the things that they do. Whereas if you get a 24, 25-year-old, they're still in development, especially for a striker. So you can mold them to how you want to play.
I think when we look at Ten Hag, you talk about the idea of a striker that he likes. He had Haller at Ajax, and he's had come to Man United now. He's had Martial, and he brought in Weghorst as well. These are guys that come deeper, maybe peel off to the centre backs, come deeper, and it's the wide men maybe occupy the space in behind, or you got runners like Bruno running in, filling behind. I think Kane suits that role of what we can sort of perceive is the idea of a Ten Hag striker. Mm-hmm. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm really not a big fan of Kane. But I have to admit, he ticks the boxes. So for me, regardless of him being 30 years old, I just think he can still provide 20 plus goals a season, maybe even more. Because if he's getting 30 goals at Tottenham, I think he'd get more at Man United at the moment, even though you say his legs are gone and whatever. I just think he needs to finish his dinner in and around the box. Look how many chances we create, Colin, lately. We create more chances than a lot of sides, and we just can't finish them off. We're dribbling, like spilling our food and all that kind of thing. We're being spoon-fed out there. I think someone like Kane would finish them off, regardless. He might not be electric with pace, but we've got guys like Garnacho, we've got Anthony, we've got Rashford, we've got these fast guys who can sort of contribute as well. So I just think he'd be a great foil for these guys and get his fair share of goals as well. So I'm a pro Kane at the moment. I might change my mind next week, but at the moment, I'm down with it.
I mean, I'm not saying that if Harry Kane comes, I'm going to be up in arms about it. I'm not, because even I know, and I'm not Harry Kane's biggest fan, I would rather go for somebody else. I know for a fact that if Harry Kane walks into this United side, he will get 20 goals a season, possibly 30 goals, who knows, 35, especially with the 40, players that we have.
Higher, 40.
Yeah, 40. Stuff it is going to outdo Erling Haaland's goal scoring tally this season, He's going to triple Erling Haaland's goal scoring tally this season. But because that's what Harry Kane does. He does finish his dinner. He's a goal scorer, but I just want something for the future. That's what I want.
I hear you. Can't hear you, Rebels, but I would love to hear what you got to say about this head-to-head that me and Colin are having.
I am quite enjoying the bashing of heads, and I am seeing that the comments are flying too. And I did notice our Dutch correspondent mentioned our main topic. So before we get to that, you might just give us a flavour of their comments on the transfers, and then we'll bash into the linked main stories.
Okay, Bartholom said, I'll be willing to pay 85 million for any player that transforms our press into something that is top 4 quality. 50 million tops, says UK Strange. We come to Vincent's comment back again. Bartholom saying here, can Colin tell us the last time a striker came from Italy with no Premier League experience and did well? But Bart is saying Brighton have already made their signings. They brought Mo Dohold from Dortmund. The clock is ticking for Erik Ten Hag and United. Dr. Zerbi took unheralded Sousa to the UEFA Champions League and Shakhtar. I didn't know that. Actually that he did all that. Rushmana, how you doing? He says Ramos, Hulund, the Danish striker, Martinez, Osherman, all great options as well. Vincent again is coming in. Oh, sorry, I've missed that. Martial is 50 million down the drain. Emma's saying here, striker, I wouldn't mind getting based on the few highlights you've seen. Is Taiwo Adoniki? That's the guy from Nottingham Forest, is it? I don't know. I don't know who that is, but maybe. Flex Felix, how you doing? Kane's contract is 9.6 million a year. I'd offer that plus 35 million for them to get a replacement, plus 20 million for selling to a rival, 65 million max. He's done the maths, quick maths there. Rushmar is saying Varovic at Juve. Apparently, we've been interested in him as well with Bayern Munich as well. Bartholom saying here, this is why your best pundit on Monday. This is why you're the best pundit on Monday. Okay, why is that? Even though you hate Kane, you see the best signing for the forward. Yeah, I do dislike Kane, and I've given my reasons why. Bruno spoke highly about Gonçalves or whatever his name is from Benfica. Work ethic and high intensity to a new Portugal newspaper. The only worry is that he's 21 and a bad season could break him like it did Depay. That's from Bar. UK Strange saying, I think we should take Martial to court for impersonating a footballer. Oh, God. United go for a youngster like Gimenez or Feyenoord and then 28-something forward like Mitrovic. Zoe Media House is in the house. Question from Rushmana: does Man United want a striker for the short term or long term? I think Colin was suggesting that about why Kane wouldn't be suitable. Erik Ten Hag wants a young striker, says Rushmana. And I'm going to finish up with a response to Emma. Rushmana says, agree, Emma, we do need 2 strikers. And that leads us on to, just going to read out the comment from Vincent. All right, there's 2. Start with this one. Vincent says, by the way, Vincent is our Dutch correspondent. Vincent, we appreciate you. Love having you jumping on and giving your insight. He says, hi, guys. Erik Ten Hag wanted Mount at Ajax when he played for Vitesse. He understands the principles from Dutch football, but he's not worth 80 million. And now he leads us on to this comment here, and you're going to take over now, Rebel. He says, and do not take Van der Sar as CEO. He was a disaster this year with Overmars. Erik Ten Hag and Overmars were the real brains behind the UEFA Champions League Ajax season when they got to the semi-final and threw it away, bottled it against Spurs.
Absolutely no. As pointed out, Edwin van der Sar has left his role as director of football at Ajax. It's been a turbulent time on the continent with much happening at Bayern Munich, with a number of players or a number of people losing their jobs in the higher echelons. Speculation that Thomas Tuchel could be leaving after only a short time. But concerning matters Manchester United, it was thought and amongst the media that 1 + 1 = 2 in terms of Van der Sar leaving, that it would make sense that he would reunite, see what I did there, with Manchester United Football Club. Now, given what we've heard there from Vincent, our Dutch correspondent, and the fact that without his main man, the manager, Erik Ten Hag, without his partner in crime in the executive, Mark Overmars, that he has crumbled under the weight of the job and hasn't fulfilled the role, according to at least Vincent, and I presume he's pulling that from the Dutch media and whatnot. Do you think then it's a case of avoid, avoid, avoid?
Hold on, fire away, man.
So, I would say, I don't agree with really bringing ex-players back into the fold of things. The legends of the club, they've played for us, they've done fantastically well. That's why they're considered as like legends or icons of the club, exactly, and that. But that should be it. It didn't work out very well for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and obviously I don't really know a lot about what happened over there. I don't know how Van der Sar did everything over there, but we've got a Dutch correspondent here who's telling us exactly what happened. So I think it, would be a bit silly to not listen to what he's saying. And I'm pretty sure, Ten Hag and everybody else would know exactly what was happening back then. So I don't think we should go near it.
I'll tell you something, it's like amazing. 6 months ago, everyone was saying, Edwin van der Sar, look at him, he's doing a fantastic job. He looks great. He does look great in a suit because he's very tall. I've seen him, he's very professional, it seems. And we're super impressed by those sort of things, aren't we? But let me just, I don't know much. The little I do know, I'm just going to speak on it now. Look, Ajax are a revolving club. They've got to work with what they've got. They bring in youth players and they develop them and they sort of buy the best probably in the Dutch league if they can. And they compete against PSV and Feyenoord. Very rarely do other sides really make it and win titles there. So Feyenoord won the league this season. PSV, Ruud van Nistelrooy left as well. There was issues there. So they have to keep recycling every year. Timber was about to leave. We took Martinez away from them. We took Anthony away from them. They also had their Gravenberch taken away from them. And this is the great side that they formed under Ten Hag. It's been broken up. So it takes a long time to repair the damage. And that's why they've come third this season behind these guys, the PSV and the Feyenoord. So it is a bad season, but I can see why. You strip away their talent and then you have to transform them again, expect it to be done straight away. It doesn't always work like that. So I don't think any judgment can be cast on Van der Sar to say he's done wrong. And the same with Overmars as well. I thought Overmars was doing a good job. But what they did really well a couple of years ago, they went against their kind of policy by bringing older players in, more experienced players like Tadic to come in and Haller as well. And that's why they got that success because it's better balance. I don't know if you remember when they won in 95, they had the balance of the young players, Finidi George, Overmars, the Davids and Seedorf in midfield together, and the De Boer brothers with Litterman, a bit older and experienced, and Rijkaard came back in, and they had Danny Blind as well with that experience. And guess who was in the goalkeeper? Edwin van der Sar, all the way back in 95, won his first title, Champions League there. So it shows you that's the success comes from getting the experience in with a bit of youngsters, and that's how you win titles and everything. That's why Arsenal, I feel, bottled it because they didn't have the experienced players in. So I don't put any blame really on Edwin van der Sar. I do think he should be considered because he's a Man United ex-player and he's doing a good job, apparently. He's a player who's gone into a role which is unusual. Usually players own a pub or they end up being a coach or they end up being a pundit like Gary Neville or a manager sometimes. But I've never heard, very rare you see players going into roles like that in football. And it's becoming a bit more popular now. When you look at Bayern Munich, there's a lot of former players. You see them in roles like that high at the club as well. But they've got the best interest in the club, and fans can relate to them. So if Edwin van der Sar was to come to us, fans would relate to him and say, okay, he's one of us. He's one of our own sort of thing. But can he perform the job? He's very inexperienced at it. I don't know. But like I say, I forgive him because I just think you strip Ajax. That's why they came third this year. And he would be in that process of rebuilding them and getting them back on top again, which I'm sure next year they will be up at there or thereabouts.
Very interesting indeed. No, obviously,
I'll jump in 1 second. It's a little bit of breaking news. Anthony Martial is out of the FA Cup final due to a hamstring tear.
Surprised?
No.
Yeah, not really surprising news, and probably the nail in the coffin in his United career because we cannot have somebody missing that many games, unfortunately, despite his obvious talent. But gentlemen, the position of director of football is very much connected to the ownership of the Manchester United Football Club and who's in the positions of power. And Sky Sports again looked at the balmy situation that is going on at Manchester United Football Club and the fact that those bumbling bureaucrats across the pond, the Glazer family, haven't been able to get fingers out of their bumholes long enough to identify a preferred bidder. These absolute charlatans and excuses for businessmen have been absolutely babbling all the way through this takeover process. And the latest is now that they do not want to make a decision on the sale of Manchester United Football Club until the end of the season, which is obviously the FA Cup final this Saturday. Now, these absolute charlatans, as we spoke on earlier on in the month, have been using United as a personal ATM. Now, if they had been declaring it as drawings, that is one thing. That it is your right as an owner of a club to have drawings. But they've been levying personal expenses as business expenses. We've already heard about how they spent £500,000 having a private flight to go to League Cup final. They will obviously be spending another £500,000 to come to FA Cup final, and they've basically ran United into the ground. But given the circumstances of how pivotal this transfer window is, it is claimed that this could be the biggest summer transfer window in the history of Premier League football. Some 2.5 billion is expected to be spent during this summer transfer window. This is the scale that transfer market has gone to. Could Glazer's skullduggery and gobshitism absolutely set Manchester United Football Club back, despite having a manager that has his head screwed on?
Honestly. Just listening to you talk about the Glazers and everything then was just literally making my blood pressure go up and up and up and up. Oh, I can't wait for them to be gone, but they're not gonna be gone. Let's face the facts here. They are pushing this off and pushing this off and pushing this off so they can do it at the end of the season where there is no matches to protest, no television to go on and protest on, because they're going to be staying with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and they're going to be here taking more and more money out of the club, even with their pathetic little shares that they've managed to swindle out because the little scavenged rats like they are. And all they've done is hurt this club every single year. Every single year. And what did this is turning up in a private jet that's come out of the fans' money, the money that they've taken out of the club for years and years. They don't give an absolute rat's ass about any single one of us, and they do not give a toss about the club. They care about themselves, all the money they can make, and every single penny they can squeeze out of this club. They wouldn't care if they could. Honestly, if they could get away with it by setting Old Trafford on fire and claiming out insurance money, they would do it. 100% they do it. I just want them to sod off, get out of Manchester, go back to America, and stay in whatever sport you actually are involved in over there, and go and watch it over there with your cups of tea or whatever you're drinking, you absolute muppets.
What a speech! Brilliant there from Colin. Yeah, I think, look, we said it would be done in March. It hasn't been done yet. We're now coming to the end of May. It's 30th of May today, isn't it? Yeah, it's coming to an end of a month where we thought, it would be all done and dusted. We would know something. I heard that we were going to know something on Friday. And it's just dragging on, isn't it? But it's really important, isn't it? The window opens in June, doesn't it? So it's only a couple of days away. We need to sort this out. But it doesn't stop. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't stop us identifying transfer list A for the ones if we get Qataris in, transfer list B if we get based on budget if we get the Sir Jim Ratcliffe in, and transfer list C if we remain with the Glazers. We can still, have the players there available and be speaking to them as well. I don't see that's a big issue. What the issue is about the finances and who we're going for. Like we say, we've been talking about Kane, Mount, Rice, how much that would cost. We've already suggested that we could sell players this year to get 100 million. So we might have to haggle a little bit. to get this done. But the main thing is we need to, like with Poch at Spurs, he wasn't given the backing when he done really well. We've done really well this season. We've got a manager we believe in, and we need to back him with the transfers that he requests. And we did last season. We spent a lot of money, over 200 million, on players that he wanted. And that's probably why there wasn't anything in the kitty in January. We had to get loan players. But we do agree we need to step it up again. This will be the second major window, summer window, coming up. And we need to back our manager, whether it's with the Glazers or not. Identify the players and get in there and highlight that we want them. Because we have to consider we've got Champions League football this time. We didn't have that on offer last season. That's why we ended up with Martinez and Anthony maybe, rather than a higher sort of well-known players than that. So I think if we are going to get the players that we really want, it shouldn't really matter. We've got the list. Let's really wait and still go in for them and hustle a little money, where do a little juggling and do it ourselves, without worrying on them. Because I think with the Glazers, they still give you 100 mil or 150 mil every year to spend anyway.
They don't give us nothing Monday.
Well, how much did we spend last season?
Yeah, no, but they personally.
How much did we spend last season?
Manchester United Football Club.
How much did we spend last season?
No, hold on. You said the Glazers give, and I want to correct that salient point. The Glazers give us diddly squat. They do not give us the steam off their
How much
euro.
transfer? Glazers are the owners, but how much transfer budget did we have last season, the season before, the season four?
Well,
I can recall spending big money. I can remember we bought Lukaku for 100-something million. We bought Jadon Sancho for a lot of money. We do spend money. We're a big club. So
Manchester United
funds. I'm saying haggle a little bit, make some money by selling off some players, and then we can start doing it ourselves. DIY job.
Manchester United Football Club has money. Manchester United Football Club generated money through its images and its sponsorships. The Glazer family have spent zero. That's just the point I wanted to make. Now, we have misspent a large quantum of that money that Manchester United Football Club generated for itself over the last number of years, because we had an incompetent moron spending the money on players that could generate more money for his fat overlords in America. But anyway, that's beside the point. But gentlemen, I want to speak on one final item. We talk about we could go with plan A or plan B or plan C, dependent on what sort of structures we have. Now, we need to bear in mind that it could be that Sir Jim Ratcliffe could come in, just for argument's sake, and he could take a look at those lists and say, and I'm not confident in the people that prepare that list, i.e. The scouts that mightn't be necessarily any direct appointment of 10 Ags, because it could be a subservient subsection, and he might say, we need to come back to basics and get a report from Joe Blogg Scout, who they feel is a more trusted source. So we could be reverting to square one with a new owner, depending on how much faith they put on the people that have generated the reports for them. Now, obviously, Ten Hag's influence on certain players will obviously help us get through the door on maybe a midfielder or a striker. But there are going to be variances dependent on who the overlords are on the approach to the market. And the biggest part is actually not player related. It is that Manchester United Stadium, our beloved Old Trafford, needs urgent intervention and planning. And it needs to have an impact study as to what doing works on that stadium is going to mean for our ability to host games at our home ground, and how soon we need to get in there and disrupt normal business at the stadium.
Yeah. I think if you look at Barcelona, I hear they're going away for a season. The Nou Camp's being redeveloped, so they're going to play at the Olympic or the National Stadium or something close by, while that goes ahead. But beyond that, I just think we need to really fix up a lot of things at the stadium as well and get things done. Apparently work started already, which suggests, when you hear things like that, it's like suggests things have already been signed and done. Or maybe what we hear in the media, maybe the club's already been sold, it's already been agreed or whatever. Maybe this is the last hurrah, as it said in one of the comments about the Glazers coming to the FA Cup final and spending all that money. Let's see ourselves off and win the FA Cup and say, haha, see you guys. And go out on a high. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We only have to pick up the pieces and try and read between the lines. But definitely, I do agree with you. But not calling you bath time, Rebel and Column. We do need to fix up the stadium, get things sorted like that as well as the transfer budget. We are very demanding, aren't we, as fans? We've got to sort the stadium out and the budget, and we want money as well. You know, I mean, come on. It's a lot to ask for, but it can't happen overnight. And as things, and like you say, selling a club can't happen overnight. It's the first time we've had to go through this process. No one really knows how long it takes. We saw it happen really quite quickly, it seems, with Chelsea, but with Man United Football Club, it seems we're dragging on a bit more, and then we would have desired, you know. So let's get this done, and then we can start taking baby steps towards fixing the club and fixing the team as well.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to take the temperature down a bit as we come towards the end of the show. On Monday, obviously, you will be doing one last draft of the comments, but there was a wonderful documentary about a former Irish and Manchester United player, a player called Kevin Moran, on RTE last weekend. So those of you that have access to it, I do encourage you to check it out. There are some very funny moments in it, and if you can find anything in your own countries about Kevin Moran, I do encourage you to look it up because he is quite the character.
I'll tell you, 1985 FA Cup final, we come up against league champions, going for the double. That's Everton Football Club. And they also won in Europe as well. I think they beat Rapid Vienna in the UEFA Cup final. That's around that season. Andy Gray, Ratcliffe, Sheedy, Mountfield, such great players. And they had the best goalkeeper in the world in Neville Southall as well. And so we were up against it, as we are up against it this week in the FA Cup final. But Norman Whiteside stood up. But it was Kevin Moran who... I mean, there's a good referee called Peter Willis. This is 1985. His name is Peter Willis. And it's the first time a player's ever been sent off in a FA Cup final. Back then, you look at tackles and say, they get away with murder. But this, Peter Reid was through, and it was a reckless challenge, brought him down. Peter Reid was a great player, by the way. And Kevin Moran got sent off. So Frank Stapleton went into centre back with Paul McGrath, and we held off until extra time. And then we broke Olsen. Mark Hughes swiveled, played out wide to Norman Whiteside, who was the youngest guy at 17 to score in 1982 World Cup, until that was broken recently. And he'd done a little step over, cut it to his left foot, his favourite foot, and curled it around Neville Southall, and we won the FA Cup. So Kevin Moran will always be remembered for the guy who got sent off in the FA Cup final. But what a great defender he was. Face first, he was tough as nails. I'm sure you would back me up on that, Rebel.
Absolutely, and obviously he came from GAA stock and played inter-county football as well. Tough as nails. You would not be shrieking away from a challenge for Kevin Moran. But there was so much that we could have gotten through today. There was the Neymar story. There was Maguire being surplus to requirements. There's obviously there's so many other stories that could have been spoken about. But frankly, there's just too much happening in the world of Manchester United Football Club at the moment. On Monday, do you want to take 4 or 5 comments before we finish that catch your eye, and then we'll get out of here?
Big G saying the debt is there for a reason. Less tax, it's like a tax dodge. Zoe Media House is saying, if we're going to talk about debt, let's talk about all the club debt as well. Bath Time saying here, wasn't Keegan the first red in the FA Cup final? That was a charity shield. Oh, he said it was. I knew that. Brummy Red is saying here, I hope they do not come to the FA Cup final. Talk about the Glazers, for £250,000. When we went to watch the women in the FA Cup final for private jet and hotel, which was owned by Qatar. Operational debt is fine for most business. It's too much at United, but their real crime is letting Old Trafford and Carrington decay, as you were saying earlier there. A couple more here. UK Strange saying we spent money on massive wages and flops. Sanchez, Lukaku, and Maguire in capital letters. Don't like that one. UK Strange saying, look, sell these players. Ilanga, Zidane, Iqbal, Palestri. Sell them. Just sell them. Rushman is saying here, the Glazers have the cash, sadly, for this window. So this could drag on. Eric Ten Hag's successes has played into their hands. Awful scenario. I'm going to leave it there for now, guys. But thanks for the comments. Great stuff.
Absolutely. And I do want to thank the wonderful contributions of my riled up colleagues after the way that I presented the show. But we will be back, of course, again tomorrow at 8:30. Thursday again at 8:30. And then, of course, it will be cup final weekend, and we will be gearing up towards the big Manchester Derby FA Cup final. And would you believe, for the first time ever, they were able to carve part of this year's winners onto the FA Cup, because it is known it will be Manchester. Whether it's going to be United or City remains to be seen, but they have done some pre-work on the FA Cup trophy, and Manchester is already sitting on the cup. Let's hope it will be us. But lads and lassies and all in the chat, thank you for your contributions. Keep your comments coming after the show, because we are interested to hear from you. But from us, a very good night.
Good night.